without question, the data is clear. The 0.1% has been seeing their net worth skyrocket by trillions and trillions and trillions, and the bottom 50% have gone nowhere in decades.
Hi, it's a pleasure to get together with Chris Martenson once again. It's been a long time. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be here with you.
It is great. Yes. Yeah.
It's so good to see you.
You know, years ago, before my book was written, I came across Chris Martenson's crash course, and I was just so incredibly impressed. I called his organization, and his assistant answered, and I got the address, and I sent a donation to Chris. And then I got a phone call, and it's Chris thanking me, and that's how we met. I think that was like 2005 or something like that, 2006. When did the crash course come out?
It first came out in 2008, so that's when I was producing it.
Okay.
And it might have been because I was releasing it chapter by chapter as they were done. They were hot off the press. You know, I'd finish them at 2 and they'd be up on YouTube at 2:30.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was so impressed that somebody was actually trying to educate the world on what is going on. And so that's how we got together, and we are so aligned in our thinking. And Chris is one of the smartest people I know, but on top of that, he's one of the most tenacious, and he does everything systematically. And what's your outlook right now on the economy?
Well, I mean, look, we're way overdue for some sort of a correction. We know that the Fed doesn't like corrections, right? Remember October 30th, 2023, stock markets are starting to tail off. Literally the next day, November 1st, they all just go up like just U-turn, right, instantly. There's no data that came along with that. Nothing happened. There was no anything happened except suddenly, I can tell you this, a lot of liquidity came into the markets. And then you look at the financial conditions index, and it got looser than it had been at the height of 2021 post-COVID. Somehow financial conditions got woohoo, you know? Yeah. And this is a thing I believe that's happening because there's a baton being passed from the Fed to the Treasury. So the Treasury is now in the business of, on a current run rate, $1.6 trillion of interest payments are on the debt, right? That's a 1/6 that goes out into the markets, and a lot of that gets round tripped back into Treasuries, but what's the rest of it doing? It's highly stimulative. Right? And where did the federal government get that 1.6 trillion? Well, they borrowed it. So they're actually increasing. So the Fed's like, oh, we're reducing our balance sheet, we're tightening, we're raising interest rates. But their buddy over at the Treasury is busy just shoveling money out the door as fast as they can. And then when the
call it currency.
Currency, sorry. You're absolutely right. I gotta get this right.
It doesn't store value. It appears and disappears constantly.
So they're shoveling currency like literally into this furnace, you know. And so my belief is that the economy has been held up by all this fake currency printing, right? It's been on life support. The Fed, for whatever reason, is terrified of stocks even correcting slightly, right, before they step in with their jawboning or extra currency injections. And so I'm a little worried that it's more fragile than most people understand. And we have a lot of warning signs that recession is coming, right? We've got credit card delinquencies are beginning to spike. We're starting to see houses sit on the market for longer. There's a lot of signs that you would normally, our leading indicators are really starting to nose over pretty hard at this point. So who knows? My vision of the economy is that they are gonna do everything they can to hold it together through the election, right? Because somehow the Fed's not political, but it likes to make sure there's no discomfort.
But they tried to do that in 2008, and it still fell apart. We had the market crash in October, November, December, and so you're right through the election cycle, and the biggest deficits in history weren't under George Bush, and then Obama tripled down on that.
Yeah.
And so they're not always able to put it off until after the election.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes they lose control early.
I hope so. It would serve them right. But what's your, do you agree the economy is not as strong as it appears, or what's your view?
I actually think that we're really in a recession. If you, when the Fed creates the currency, the only way that they can do so is by pumping the financial markets. The Fed can only create currency by buying something, and the second they buy something, the currency appears. And the Federal Reserve Act handcuffs them into, they can only buy financial assets that are guaranteed as to the principal and interest by the U.S. government. That meant U.S. Treasuries until Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were nationalized, and then it was Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. But they're being purchased through the primary dealers, the biggest brokerage houses in the world. So it is all being funneled into the financial markets. It goes into the stock market and bond markets, period. Then when they lower interest rates, the banks create more bank credit. So that inflates that part. When you talk about recessions, though, how it affects the individual, it's bifurcating society where people that their net worth is tied to their stock portfolio or their real estate portfolio, they're getting richer and richer, while the average guy is seeing the inflation from the dilution of the currency supply and getting poorer and poorer. And so what I see when I go out to dinner, like in Puerto Rico, the restaurants midweek that used to be busy just a year ago are practically empty now. You still see it on weekends, but go out to dinner sometime midweek and see if your neighborhood is still doing well, because I think that most of them are not doing that well. And so we've got a economic boom going on for the people that have large asset portfolios, whether it's stocks or real estate, and we've got a recession going on for everybody else. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I agree with that. And so this is the part. So you want to know what one of my most censored tweets ever is going to be? It's when I criticize the Federal Reserve. Either nobody cares, but I think there's a suppression algorithm on it. I can tweet about almost anything else, get good traction. But when I point out that the Federal Reserve engages in social engineering, they pick winners and losers. Yeah. This generation wins, this loses. These asset holders win, these hardworking people lose. That's what they're doing. Exactly. I think we should talk about that. I think we should debate whether that's an appropriate role for the Federal Reserve to be doing. But without question, the data is clear. The 0.1% has been seeing their net worth skyrocket by trillions and trillions and trillions, and the bottom 50% have gone nowhere in decades. Right. And I think that's important. That's strictly a function of the Federal Reserve. That's them. It's not any other policy unless maybe taxation, I guess. But really, it's the Fed doing that, right? So
I've got to do a quick little promo here. In my book, the free chapters, we don't even ask for an email address. Just go download it and send it to everyone you can. But there is a chapter on chapter 4. Toward the end of it, you're going to see exactly what Chris is talking about, how the wealthiest individuals, their checking accounts, basically, their cash on hand just soared during the pandemic. It looks like it soared also for the poor, but in comparison, it's like 98% of the dollars went to the wealthiest people. And what that did was bifurcate society even more. It's a picture of the hate, envy, and the social unrest that is going on is in one graph. And I think I talk about that in part 7 of chapter 4 of Great Gold and Silver Rush. So back to our program. Got my commercial in. No, it's free. Really, go and learn about this. It is important. And the Federal Reserve is either immoral, or they're either incompetent, in which case they don't belong in their jobs, or they are immoral and belong in jail. If they don't understand the wealth transfer they're causing, then they're incompetent. If they do, and they're doing this on purpose and causing this the enslavement and the poverty on one hand and the wealth being taken from one group of people and transferred to the richest people on the planet, if they do understand that, then they are immoral and they belong in jail.
Well said.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's so important what you're doing, right? We have to, this is big deal. They are social engineering. And by the way, they're harming my future, my children's future. I don't have grandkids, but if I did, their future. They're harming everybody's future.
Right.
And I think we should talk about that, right? And say, is this something we want? Right? So, but again, when I try and talk about the Federal Reserve, either most people don't care, or there's so little traction for it, or there's a suppression algorithm going on.
Yeah.
Like I had one a while ago. I thought it was a snappy tweet. It was good, got right to the point. It had like 8 views, and I allegedly, like after an hour, right, 8 views. And allegedly I have 100 and whatever, 90,000.
Shadow banned, basically.
Yes, like just gone, like just nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I've learned you have to sort of do the funny spelling, Fred
this
roll,
This is on X.com though,
yeah.
right?
Well, I don't think Elon's totally in control of the algorithm yet. I think there's buried code in there.
Okay.
It's still doing things.
Left over from Twitter. Okay.
He inherited a mess.
Yes, he did. But he's doing a pretty heroic job cleaning it up.
He is.
And what he just did in Brazil
I know.
is quite amazing. I mean, he's taking on a government just head on.
Head on. Without
it is,
flinching. He just like
Exactly.
sails right into that. I love that.
Exactly. And defying them as a matter to try and retain everybody's freedom of speech globally. That's what he's fighting for. I think it's just amazing and highly admirable.
I do too. Because it's the most important thing we've got, right? We need our freedom of speech. We absolutely do. Yeah. Full on. That's the battle.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say to the audience as we depart?
You should absolutely get GoldSilver, the book, right? Absolutely. Read
Great
chapters
Gold
3.
and Silver Rush.
Great Gold and Silver, right? Chapter 3, Chapter 4. Check them out.
Those are free online. So,
absolutely. It's a great book. So thank you for writing it, and thank you for what you do.
You know, I noticed you've got one of our 10-ounce silver rounds that I gave you a long
Proudly.
time ago in your on
It's
display.
been in every episode.
Yeah.
It's
Excellent.
sitting back there, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Awesome.
Good.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.